Why is freedom only possible in a market society? Hi guys, Praxgirl here. In our last lesson, we further defined what the market process is and why it is known as capitalism. We learned that this system requires the respect for private property rights. We also learned more about the tasks of economic calculation and why in the free market no one is a slave to anyone else. In this lesson, I would like to talk about how competition works in a free market and why it benefits everyone rather than only a few. Every mode of social organization has competition. In the free market, sellers compete to provide buyers with the lowest possible prices. Conversely, buyers compete to provide sellers the highest possible prices. In order to best serve himself, an individual has an incentive to make his fellow man as happy as possible. Therefore, the type of competition in a free market should not be confused with the type of competition that occurs in nature. In nature, the rule of thumb is survival of the fittest. When one animal seeks food and a stronger, more agile animal swipes it away first, it is clear who the winner is and who is the loser. But in the free market, the goals are to specifically replace the savagery of the animal world for social cooperation. Those who fail in the market are not annihilated. They are simply relegated to a more modest position in the social strata. We must therefore differentiate the former type of competition, which we will call biological competition, for the type of competition that praxeology studies, Catallactic competition. In biological competition, the strong is always right. The weaker must surrender and are left with no choice as to the outcome of their situation. There is no freedom to speak of in nature. The concept of freedom only makes sense as far as it refers to interhuman relations. In a free market, everyone is equal in their right to their own bodies and their ownership over their property. Compulsion and coercion are not elements of the market. All parties therefore have the freedom to do as they wish so long as it does not interfere with the property, freedom, of others. Freedom as a praxeological category therefore means the sphere in which an acting individual is in a position to choose between alternative modes of action. A man is free insofar as he is permitted to choose ends and the means to be used for the attainment of those ends. A man's freedom is most rigidly restricted by the laws of nature as well as by the laws of praxeology. He cannot attain ends that are incompatible with one another. Let's see two examples of how man is limited by the laws of nature and praxeology. Suppose that Joe wants to jump from the coast of New York to the coast of Spain. The laws of nature as defined by physics will show that an ordinary man cannot jump under his own energy across such an expanse. If he uses a device such as an airplane, he can't accomplish his end because his means are compatible. The laws of nature, too, will govern the airplane. Now suppose that Joe wants to consume a lot of drugs for an indefinite period of time. He can go about buying and consuming drugs, but once his money is gone, he cannot continue to consume the same way as before. The laws of the market have thus pushed him into a position in which he will have to start saving again in order to be able to acquire what he wants. His only other option is to steal the drugs. But then at that point, Joe is no longer acting within society or the market, but acting against his own and everyone else's long-term interests. The universal laws of praxeology put Joe and everyone else firmly into the reality that they cannot have both the benefits of the division of labor and social cooperation and embark on conduct that would disintegrate society. No one has freedom to violate others' freedoms. To imply this would be a contradiction, because the aggressor would have his will imposed on the other party, and at that point we would in fact be back at some form of biological competition where only the strongest survive. Freedom only makes sense in the context of a peaceful social system. We have noted before that people are not born equal in their abilities to perform tasks, or in their capacity to desire ends. Praxeology cannot make a value judgment as to whether it is better or worse for people to have equal wealth and income. Our only task is to understand how inequality plays a role in human action. Just as we have seen that action itself is always a result of a void in a person's satisfaction, competition arises in the market precisely because a seller is not meeting all of the satisfactions of the customers. It is inequality between what men have to offer to their fellow men, rather than equality, that pushes everybody to try to outdo their competitors. At every stage in the market, people try to satisfy other people better in order to satisfy themselves. The better they satisfy other people, the more means they acquire to achieve their own ends. The market, in rewarding the individual's efforts according to its value, leaves to everyone the choice between a more or less complete utilization of his own faculties and abilities. This method cannot, of course, eliminate the disadvantages of inherent personal shortcomings, but it provides an incentive to everybody to exert their faculties and abilities to the utmost. If, in fact, freedom is an outcome of competition, the question might arise of how order is kept in the market. Precisely through competition. Capitalist society has no means of compelling a man to change his occupation or his place of work than to reward those who comply with the wants of the consumers with higher pay. In the market, your reputation is everything, and to tarnish it means that private consumer protection agencies will alert other businesses to your credit rating when you fail to uphold contracts or violate private property. These agencies exist because individuals, in the strife to attain their own ends, will always be willing to pay for security. To have the ability to buy and trade with people, a person has to build up trust, or in other words, a reputation. This is in contrast to the other method of compelling men to act in certain ways: violence, best characterized by governments. The market is incompatible with any form of government because government, by definition, implies that there is not 100% agreement between the consumers of the service and the provider. Therefore, government means violence. Violence, as we have been stressing, is antithetical to the market system and capitalism. Later, we will learn more about how implementing government and economic planning as a substitution for the market causes the desires of society to remain unfulfilled. For now, we can simply say that in a system where the government makes decisions on behalf of the citizens, people only have one right, the right to obey. People could be called equal as serfs under the ruler, but not equal to the ruler himself or free in any useful sense. In conclusion, praxeology finds that the inequality of individuals with regard to wealth and income is an essential feature of the market economy. But rather than this conclusion leading to destruction and chaos, we find that this inequality is actually a major driving force for prosperity in a capitalist system. Freedom and order arise from the striving on behalf of everyone to best achieve their own ends. Lastly, we now see that the age-old criticism that free markets support the kind of survival of the fittest found in biological competition is not only false, but the market is the diametric opposite of a jungle society. While the jungle is a brutish place of war of all against all where one man gains at another's expense, the market society transmutes the jungle's destructive competition for a peaceful cooperation where everybody benefits. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.